It's back. It is back. I've lost my recorder in the move, so that's not back. I won't be able to play you a tune. But the Champions League is back, and with it comes Champions League predictions and a preview of every single matchup. But mainly, it's the predictions you care about. A chance for you to gloat about how smart you are, and a chance for me to put my picks on the internet with my name and my face next to them, where they will live forever for you to see and ridicule me over. By the way, I'm Adrian. I'm that fool that is pulling that off. And welcome if you're new, or hey, how are you? If you're a returning subscriber. If you want me to ask you how you're doing in the next video, then just hit subscribe. Let's start with the holders. Liverpool taking on Atletico, the finalists from 2014 and 2016. Liverpool, in this moment, are the strongest they have been for decades. In fact, I'll tell you now, spoiler alert, I can't see anybody beating Liverpool in the Champions League based on their current form. I can see them beating everyone, you know? That being said, Liverpool didn't have a perfect group stage campaign. They didn't last year either, and it didn't seem to make a difference for them. But this season, they lost their opener against Napoli. A Napoli side that since then has gone on to have a very middling season. Later, they dropped points once again against Napoli, but won the rest of their matches, so here we are as they emerge as group winners. Atletico, on the other hand, are a team in the middle of a major transition that is bereft with injuries and are looking like a shadow of the team that they used to be under Simeone. That said, their defensive record is still extremely impressive, second best in La Liga behind only Real Madrid. And given that it's a cup competition, a continental cup competition, you can't count anyone out completely. There are teams that have better European form than they do domestic, you know? Think of Tottenham last season. Or, Liverpool in 2005, the year they finished 5th in the Premier League, they were champions of Europe. But I don't think that Simeone can somehow navigate this one. Liverpool is operating to an insane degree right now. Could it be down to all of their use of data analysis? Maybe, and maybe you should check out my video on that subject exactly. But Liverpool are operating at such a degree that I don't think Atletico will pose a massive problem for them. They will frustrate them at times, but Liverpool should easily get through. Oh yeah, and a score. I forgot about that. 4-2 Liverpool. Maybe a 3-1 and a 1-1, something like that. English team versus team from Madrid, round 2. Let's go. There were plenty of people that were saying, this season City will forget about the league and focus on winning the Champions League. And they've definitely forgotten about the league. They've forgotten about it by about 22 points. And you can understand why people would say this, right? I mean, this is the final step for Pep. He won everything he possibly could domestically last season, besides the Holy Grail, the Checkatrade Trophy, which has only been won by an elite few. Pep, eat your heart out. You'll never win the Checkatrade Trophy. In fact, Pep himself said in a press conference recently that if he loses to Real Madrid, he could get sacked by Man City. But let's give some more context to that, because otherwise it sounds really silly. Quote, I want to win the Champions League, I'm dreaming of it, and I'm excited about preparing for the game against Madrid for the next 2 weeks. This process and these 2 weeks before the game will be the happiest 2 weeks of my profession. If we don't beat them, then the chairman or sporting director will come and say, it's not good enough, we want the Champions League, I'm going to sack you. Now, to be fair, he was likely just lightheartedly playing with the media and how severe they usually are. Well, we are, I guess. To me, it comes off as a joking, not joking from Pep. While City wouldn't sack him, I don't think, he would probably see it as a failure of his own if he cannot at least get City to the final. As for their domestic form, they aren't as good as they were last season, as again, they are 22 points behind Liverpool. And recently, they lost to both Spurs and United. So that said, their group stage went great with 4 wins and 2 draws, topping Group C. Real Madrid. Speaking of the media being severe, I was exactly that, I will admit it, and I had some serious doubts about the personnel on this team and with the decisions that Zidane was making, but they have blown me away since then. They had that horrible loss to open up the Champions League, 3-0 against PSG, then followed that up with a 2-2 draw against Club Brugge at home. But they won 3 out of their next 4, the odd one out being a draw with PSG, and were impressive at times, like their 6-0 win over Galatasaray. RIP Galatasaray, those poor boys. 2 points, 1 goal scored. And hey, perhaps the more unexpected part, at least in my opinion, is how rock solid Madrid have been defensively. Their defensive record ranks number 1 not just in Spain, but in the top 5 leagues, having conceded just 14 goals, 1 less than Liverpool and Atletico. And a huge part of that is Thibaut Courtois. He's been playing insanely well lately. Player of the month in January. So, will Madrid beat City? I mean, Zidane has never lost the UCL knockout stage match. That's hard to look past. Plus, they'll have Eden Hazard back, and he loves a match against City. And City's options in defense have been erratic or injured as of late. Fernandinho playing as a center back has been solid, but when you take him out of the midfield, you lose so much there. And Madrid will have an opportunity to overrun that area. Plus, as Sid Lowe mentioned on La Liga TV, Real Madrid have had 13 different goal scorers in the last 4 weeks. Some teams haven't had that many throughout this entire season, and I think Zidane, in the Battle of the Balds, will not be this season's fraud. 4-3 Real Madrid. Got the score in there real quick that time. I was ready for it. Okay, let's chill on the English teams for a moment and go to the tie that I am looking forward to the most. Why? Why am I looking forward to PSG versus Dortmund? Because Dortmund guarantee goals, both going forward and thanks to their recently non-existent back line, in the other direction as well. And by recently, I mean, well, I guess you could say that they've been shipping goals for a while now. 7 goals conceded in their last 2 matches, the 9th best defense in the league, 32 conceded total out of the DFB Pokal at the hands of one of the worst teams in the league in Werder Bremen. It's shocking stuff from Dortmund at times. You clash that up against their brilliant attack and a shame. In Europe, similar sort of problems, 8 goals scored, 8 goals conceded, but it was enough to finish 3 points ahead of Inter and clinch a place in the round of 16. This sounds like Borussia bashing. I guess it sort of is in a way, but they are blessed going forward. Blessed with 2 of the hottest young talents in Europe, Jadon Sancho and Erling Haaland. And yes, before you ask, Haaland is eligible to play for Dortmund against PSG. They changed the rule last year so that players will no longer be cup-tied in European competitions. And thank goodness, you know. The guy's scoring record is unbelievable. Already he scored 7 goals in 5 appearances for Dortmund and is looking lethal beyond his years. But PSG have some lethal attackers as well, including a seemingly very happy and bald Neymar. 13 goals and 6 assists in 14 appearances in Ligue 1, goal and 2 assists in 135 minutes of Champions League football. It finally feels like we're seeing the Neymar we were promised at PSG. Well, I guess we saw some unreal numbers in his first season with PSG as well, but now he genuinely seems happy to be there, and there are talks of him signing another deal with the club, and he's playing with joy. Then there's Di Maria, who leads the league in assists, Mbappe, who is scoring and providing proficiently, Mauro Icardi has fallen off pace a bit lately, but is decent. PSG are looking great going forward. That's basically what I'm trying to convey here. But unlike Dortmund, they have the defensive chops as well, or at least far better than their German adversaries. PSG scored 17 goals in the group stage and only conceded twice, both goals at the hands of Real Madrid in their 2-2 draw at the Bernabeu. Not a lot of shame in that. And that defense will be the difference in this for me. PSG's ability to defend, plus the attacking talent that they boast, they'll have a field day with that Dortmund backline. Dortmund will score as well, but PSG to ease past them 5-3. Oh, Valencia, a team that I have written off at my own peril and a team that I have backed at my own peril in the past as well. They don't make things easy for me as their season has been a bit unpredictable, just as it was last season. Overall, they are a good team. Good. They sacked Marcelino, surged up La Liga standings only to cool off, and now drop down to 7th. Though it must be said, it's so tight from 8th to 3rd that a win can move you up 3 places and a loss the contrary. Valencia were in a good bit of form when they went away to Ajax in Amsterdam in December, and they managed to somehow get a 1-0 win despite Ajax throwing everything at them. And even crazier still, Valencia ended up tying Chelsea for the top spot and ultimately finishing in 1st in their group. Atalanta, on the other hand, also had a bit of a great escape in their group. They looked down, out, dead, and like they would cost me my group stage predictions, but in their last 3 matches, they drew City at home, beat Dinamo Zagreb 2-0 at home, then beat Shakhtar 3-0 away to steal 2nd and a trip to the round of 16 in their first ever Champions League campaign. You'll love to see it. Recently, they have been scoring for fun in the Serie A, with Ilicic acting as one of the top performers in the league since return from break. He scored 11 goals in his last 10 matches. a renaissance at 32 years old, already eclipsing his record from last season by 2 goals. The most he scored in a decade of seasons, and there's still a few months to play in this one. This season, not this decade. It's over, or it just started, I should say. These are two strange teams that are the definition of unpredictable. Their form is volatile, especially in Atalanta's case, as they are just as likely to score 7, which they've done twice this season, as they are to choke and lose against a near bottom of the table team. That said, I can see them continuing their Cinderella story into the quarterfinals. Atalanta 3, Valencia 2. Valencia, of course, is going to go through because that's what happens when I bet against Valencia. Actually, that's not true. I bet on them to go to the final ahead of Arsenal last season in the Europa League, and they let me down, man. So, anyone who says I always bet against Valencia, liars. Leipzig versus Tottenham, and RB Leipzig are on a bit of a bobble at the moment in comparison to the form from earlier in the season. And the fact that they have so many injured defenders really makes me worry for them. They went on an incredible run that took them atop the Bundesliga standings for a while, but that Bayern Munich, they don't stay sleeping for long, and they took back what's theirs. That said, Leipzig, when they are fully fit, are a fantastic team to watch, and a scary one as well. Julian Nagelsmann's influence on the club has taken them to unprecedented territory, the Champions League knockout rounds, but it's unprecedented territory for Nagelsmann as well, and I do wonder if that will have a negative effect on their chances. With talent like Timo Werner, Dani Olmo, and Schick going forward, I guess, Schick. Plus my personal favorite, Marcel Sabitzer, they have the potency in the attack, something they exuded in their Champions League group that they topped ahead of Lyon and Benfica. But as alluded to, they are light in defense. If they're forced to play the not-so-convincing Klosterman against some of Tottenham's more clever attackers, attackers who recently, under Mourinho, have looked a little bit better, despite, a big despite here, losing Harry Kane for who knows how long at this point. I say that because he's been ruled out for a few months, but often makes speedy recoveries. He's been gone for 43 days now, according to Transfermarkt, but in his stead, Spurs have at least brought in Steven Bergwijn, not a striker, but a skillful winger who scored on his debut against City. Maybe this could propel him forward to a dream start for Spurs and he can carry them to a few good results. We'll see. They had a solid group stage, losing only to Bayern on both occasions, though one of those was a 7-2 loss. Other than that, they have been improving domestically, as you can see that Mourinho's work is starting to bear fruit and the team's togetherness and mentality seems to be in the right place after it was fractured a little bit in Pochettino's final days. Or at least from the outside looking in, it seemed like it was, and from what we heard from insiders. Mourinho is a clever old fox that should never ever be ruled out, and his attitude is certainly a breath of fresh air in comparison to his latter days at United. And again, I wonder if Nagelsmann and Leipzig's inexperience will take this tie away from them. Tottenham also are used to playing with their backs against the wall, and they will play until the very last breath in this competition, just as they did last year against Manchester City and Ajax. That experience could be enough to take Spurs past Leipzig. 3-3, Spurs advance on away goals. It's going to be close. The last English team. Let's finish up with the English by taking in Chelsea versus Bayern. And Chelsea, man, yet another team that isn't the easiest to get a read on. At times this season, they have proven just how exciting they can be going forward, but the goals can dry up at any moment. And their defensive unit is anything but consistent. I mean, back in December/late November, they were losing every other game. And while they have improved more recently, I still do have a tough time trusting them. Regardless, in the Champions League, they have been exciting, finishing 1 point above third-placed Ajax to advance upon their return to the competition after winning the Europa League last season. Sorry, I had a little bit of slow brain there. But what I said about their defense domestically, the same can be said of it in Europe, as they had the second worst defense in their group. In a rematch of the 2012 final that Chelsea won, Bayern will be their opponents come February 25th, and Bayern will be a mighty team to behold. The last time they made an appearance in London, they slapped up Chelsea's London rivals Tottenham with 7 goals, and Bayern, even through a managerial sacking, still had a near impeccable group stage. They won all 6 of their matches, scoring 24 goals, the most of any team in the competition, and conceding just 5. Domestically, manager Hansi Flick has righted the ship and and Bayern haven't lost since early December. From there, they won 8 matches on the trot and recently drew 1-1 with RB Leipzig. And yes, of course they are atop the Bundesliga table at the moment, man. Don't even ask, you know. For my money, Bayern have become one of the top contenders for the Champions League this season. Manuel Neuer is performing well once again. Their back line of Davies, Alaba the centre-back, Boateng and Pavard is starting to gel very nicely. Kimmich and Thiago are holding down the midfield beautifully. Thomas Muller is back to something resembling his top level, and Lewandowski simply cannot be stopped in front of goal. I see Bayern taking this 4-2 on aggregate. I just think they have way too much for this young Chelsea team and Chelsea manager to handle. What's with teams this season being so hard to get a read on? Lyon is definitely one of those teams, as they barely made it through the group stage ahead of Benfica. Our fault though, that's totally on us, as Lyon had 2 wins, 2 draws, and 2 losses. I was surprised to see them get through, as their domestic form has been crap. So crap that over the Christmas break, they were sitting in 12th in Ligue 1. That said though, they do have some gifted players such as Aouar. Love watching him play, so you can't sleep on them completely. Juventus, on the other hand, they have recently become far too reliant on Cristiano Ronaldo. Some very poor examples of sorry ball have led to matches being much closer than they should have been for the old lady, often relying on a moment of brilliance from Cristiano to score and drag them to a win, or to score a penalty or whatever. Speaking of Ronaldo and goals, he has scored 18 goals since December 1st. That's 18 goals across 14 matches, failing to score in only 1 of them. What? Ronaldo is just going to be around here forever, guys, so get used to it. He doesn't slow down. And yes, I know some of you will be wondering how many goals have been penalties. 8. 8 of his 24 goals so far this season have been penalties. But Juve's form has caused them to drop to second in the Serie A, only on goal difference, but their European challenge was solid. They won 5 and drew 1 against Atletico to finish in first quite comfortably, 6 points above second place. So despite Juve struggling a bit lately, if there's one thing Cristiano Ronaldo loves, it's the Champions League knockout stages. This is his platform to perform on, and I can't see him doing anything but that against Lyon, a team that he has a history of scoring against. He's met them in European competitions more than any other team, actually, 10 times, scoring 4 times. So maybe not his best goals per minute record against a certain team, but still, he's familiar with them. So, Juve to advance, though I do think Lyon will make it interesting. 1-1 draw in one leg and a 2-1 win in the other for Juve, which equals 3-2 Juve if you're a genius mathematician like myself. I should work in Liverpool's research department. Napoli versus Barcelona, the Diego Maradona derby. And if I were you, I wouldn't write Napoli off so fast. Trust me. I've been critiquing them just as much as the next guy this season, and I ultimately think it was a huge mistake to sack Carlo Ancelotti for Gattuso, especially if you're looking at it through the lens of the Champions League, given Ancelotti's tactical acumen and, well, knack for winning this competition. And I've criticized them, rightfully so in my opinion, for how the management has dealt with the players and supporters throughout the season, and in turn how that has affected their performances. Napoli were able to finish ahead of Genk and Salzburg in their Champions League group, a positive for them after last season's failure, but domestically, man, they're looking poor, floundering in 11th place with 3 wins and 5 losses in their last 8 Serie A matches. The players seem unhappy with the management is unhappy with the players, the fans are obviously disappointed with what they're seeing on the pitch and off of the pitch, and Gattuso is right there in the middle. It's not a great situation he inherited. Things aren't all sunshine and Iberico Jamon over in Barcelona though either. Valverde was sacked about 7 or 8 months later than when he should have been, if you ask me. After the Copa del Rey loss, that should have been it, in my opinion. But anyway, there's also evidence of turmoil behind closed doors with the Messi versus Abidal situation, as well as the injuries to players like Suarez and Dembele. Best wishes to both of them, but it's not peak Barcelona right now, that's for sure. So Barcelona sit in second in La Liga currently, were ousted from the Copa del Rey by Bilbao, but had a pretty decent Champions League group stage. 4 wins, 2 draws, though they definitely had some sticky situations against both Dortmund and Slavia Praha. So my head is pointing towards Barcelona advancing, but something is telling me not to sleep on Napoli again, as they have shown in the Coppa Italia that perhaps cup competitions suit them. I don't know. I still think they'll be eliminated, but I won't count them out like I initially thought I would. Barcelona advance after extra time 3-2. Yeah, another 3-2. That's fine. I can say as many 3-2s as I want. Alright, so I have Liverpool, PSG, Atalanta, Spurs, Bayern, Barcelona, Juve, and Real Madrid all advancing. You? Who do you have? Let me know in the comments, but other than that, I'm Adrian. Thanks so much for watching. I love ya, and enjoy the round of 16.